us on a reparations summit of all the national leaders across the country in the reparations movement. We want to make sure that the members attending this conference here from Ron and So after this panel, and we're going to let them do their time, but after this panel, we'll squeeze out a few more minutes before we go into the next sessions for Dr. Ron Daniels to come up and address all. Is that all right with everybody? Okay. Now, I know that you're having lunch, something different. We didn't ask for any hotel to come in and charge us $25 for lunch. It costs $5. So we had people on the planning committee who put these lunches together and went out, got all the food the way that we used to do it, and the way that gives us a sense of community. And so we thank you for supporting the so-called conference by buying your lunch here. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the moderator of this panel, Mr. Willie Lindsay, who's also a member of the planning committee and does a whole lot of stuff. So if I started talking about all the stuff he did, we wouldn't have time to talk about anybody else. Willie?
I'd like to thank you all for attending this particular workshop, luncheon workshop. It's an exciting workshop, I think, that will talk about the role of religion in this struggle. Religion has always been a very important part of the African American community. Always been singing Zion songs to the prayer that they've got our fathers and our mothers moving forward in their struggle and their sense of vision. We have a distinguished panel of preachers. As they've always said, you get two preachers in one part of the world at the same time, you don't know what you come up with. So I don't know what we're going to come up with today. So again, we're going to follow the same format as we have with all the other workshops, and that's simply we're going to let them present their perspective of what the role of religion is, meaning our struggles that are ahead of us. And then at the conclusion, we'll allow some time for you to have questions and answers from our panelists. And then we'll do a wrap up and bring Ron and Mary back in. Our first speaker today is Reverend Wayne Lawson from the First Baptist Church in Ardmore, Oklahoma. This is the oldest black church in the city. He's telling me that it's been here since 1888. As you can see, I'm not that old, so I was not there. He's co-chair of FACTS. This is a birth in November of last year. It's a Faith Assembly Community Task and Services. That's what FACTS stands for. It's an acronym. He's chair of the ACE, which was birthed in July of 2001. It's an organization which focuses on the training of pastors, ministry, evangelists, and wives of ministers in the 21st century. I ask you to put your hands together. Let us bring our first speaker on, Mr. Wayne Lawson.
Good afternoon. I have prepared a presentation for this afternoon after attending I'll try to speak up. After attending the opening session last evening, there was a few comments that were made in reference to the black church in its entirety. Some of the comments were somewhat on the negative side. So I went back last night and prayed and asked God to refocus my attention to that I might help us gain a better sense of where the black church stands and what we ought to be doing to move our communities forward. It was about 30, 40, perhaps 50 years ago, by virtue of being a black pastor, we were also a community leader. During the days of slavery and for a century after its abolition, black preachers often were the most educated people. Therefore, they were the community spokesperson for our entire race. As pastors, we held political office. We headed civil rights organizations. We led protest marches. However, our influence as black pastors began to dwindle during the turbulent times of the 1960s and well into the 1980s. Young black men and young black women began to turn a deaf ear to the church and its God-fearing message. There was a general weaning from the church on the part of our young black men and young black women. They did not give the credence that we should ordinarily give to the black church. They did not understand what was transpiring in the church. They were somewhat disillusioned. They began to understand that society opened up. Places we were not allowed to go to, places we were not allowed to visit, we were now allowed to go. Therefore, the youth of our community began to shy and shun the black church. After the 1960s, and especially after the Reagan administration, the disillusionment for social change was also there. People began to come back to the church. However, we found as pastors, when young men and women returned to the church, they made demands on the church. They asked the church to do and accomplish things that we had never done before. A renaissance began to take place in the black community and the black church. This time, renaissance was in terms of the church being expected to move the community forward. However, during this renaissance after the 1960s, young men and women did not hold the pastor in great esteem as generations before. I believe Al Sharpton said it best. We all came over on different ships, but we're in the same boat now. We began to understand that pastors must take on a more responsible role in the community. Preaching on Sunday morning, collecting your check and going home was no longer acceptable. The church began to ask the pastors to move the church forward in the realm of politics, in the realm of church growth, in the realm of empowerment. So the pastor had to become more equipped. And we have birthed something called ACE Ministries in Ardmore, where we have taken the educated pastors in the community and we'll have now gathered pastors, ministers, evangelists who have not attended Bible study, who have not attended Bible college for whatever reason, and began to give them free of charge what we had to pay for. You see, we are now demanding that our pastors are educated in the field of politics, in the field of business. Some of our churches now own banks. They own housing developments. They own nursing homes. The church is now so diversified that the pastor must understand that we can no longer pastor and move the community forward alone. And we should not be expected to move the church forward. So now we have begun to empower those sitting in the pews, because we realize that we as a black people, we are educated. We are more educated now in the close of the 20th century. We're more educated now in the turn of the 21st century than we have ever been before. So now we are tapping into the experience of the pews. We now have schools, banks, senior citizens housing, restaurants, housing developments, and computer training that has been birthed inside of our individual churches. Pastors must learn how to enable members to make a spiritual down payment on heaven without mortgaging their earthly benefits. We must learn how to stop criticizing and challenge our leaders. As I look around, as I looked last evening and look around this morning, I don't see enough of our pastors from Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Ardmore, and other communities. And I challenge you not to criticize those pastors, but let's go back and challenge them. It's not enough to sign a letter of endorsement, to put that 34-cent stamp on the envelope and mail it to our representative saying, I support what you're doing. We need to support by moving beyond the four walls of the sanctuary and support with our time, our talent, and our treasure. Without the pastor, we will either have a godly kingdom mentality that is no earthly good, or an earthly kingdom mentality that is no spiritual good. The pastor is the link that connects the two. I challenge you, go back and challenge your pastor. Challenge your church to move beyond the four walls, and let's make some noise in our community. Let's make some noise in our community in which we live. Let's go down and sit before the mayor, sit before our representatives, sit before our different senators in this state, and let them know that we have buried our head in the sand for too long. Now is the time to stand up, push your pastor, push your church forward, and I guarantee that God will do the rest.
Thank Brother Lawson, Reverend Lawson, for that comment. I never mentioned it before, but I don't think this is our last meeting. Our next speaker is the Reverend George E. Young, Sr. He's a community activist, holding membership in many civic and faith-based organizations, including the mayoral and governor's appointed committees. He is pastor of the Progressive Oklahoma Baptist State Convention, current president of the Congress of Christian Education for the Southwest region of the Progressive National Baptist Convention. He is a graduate of the Oklahoma Aging Leadership Advocacy class of 1999. He is a member of the Oklahoma Leadership Class of 20. Class, all right. And Pastor Young brings many years of pastoral experience ministering to a diverse population. He's currently serving as senior pastor at the Holy Temple Baptist Church here in Oklahoma City. Ladies, gentlemen, brothers and sisters, let us greet him as we bring him forward with his thoughts on religion and the struggle.
I thank Representative Teray for asking me to come and to be a part of this idea of the role of religion in our struggle. One of the things I guess I like someone was describing me the other day, and he said he's pragmatic. But I'd rather be spiritual, and have somebody he's holy or something like that. They called me pragmatic, but I understood that. And the reason I understood that was because my personal philosophy and my approach to ministry, to our practice of religion, is one of pragmatism. We live in a real world, and religion is part of a real world. If you take the time to look at the Bible, you'll understand that the children of Israel, as they wandered in the wilderness, and they came to a place that was flowing, as they described it, with milk and honey. But not only a spiritual organization, but they were an economic organization. They were a social organization. They were an organization that had to be involved in all of the aspects of living life. Somewhere down the line, we who are leaders in the church got the idea that all we had to do was to preach on Sunday, and that would be it. Show up on Wednesday night for prayer service sometimes, and that would be it. The world never claimed that for us. We are the ones who claim that. We are the ones, as Pastor Lawson said, stuck our heads in the sand and tried to disregard the civil rights movement, tried to help us to come back out and to break out and to be more active in it. But then after that was over, we thought the victory was done, and not only did we shout and sing, we went back into our churches, never to be seen or heard from again. Yes, I can say that. I'm a pastor, and I led pastors, and I understand the difficulty in trying to get other pastors to get involved, and so I don't have any problems. I don't hesitate in saying that there is difficulty in getting our pastors to work together. Yes. We need to look at the practice of religion in a different way. The role of religion, it's not my responsibility. It's those folk I speak to on Sundays, those folk I teach, those folk I interact with, those folk who I'm forming a relationship of pastor and members with. I have to encourage and motivate them. They need to hear more about it. I know you may not like to hear this. They need to hear more about it. Early Sunday morning, Jesus got up with all power in heaven and on earth. Because Monday morning, you need to get up and do some things in the community that expresses your power on earth and your belief of the power in heaven. And so, yes. I appreciate some of the things that we read about me being a community activist. Sometimes we as pastors get caught up. It's a difficult job, and some of you may not know it. Dr. Hill, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Dealing with folk who live, living with folk who die, dealing with folk who have birth, dealing with folk who have divorces, dealing with children who are in the detention center, Brother Pfeiffer, and going down there sometimes, dealing with children who are in school and showing up at those schools on Wednesday evening for the host program, or mentoring program, trying to do whiz kids in church so that you will have the children in the neighborhood come to your church and participate. It's more than just talking about early this Sunday morning. That sounds good. At the end of a sermon that you can finish it up and tighten it up and hoop it up. If you don't have any action behind it, if you don't have any sacrifice behind it, yes, the role of religion really is about the pastors and the religious leaders motivating and educating our people to become more involved in the community. No, I ought not have to show up down at the mayor's office every time something happens. I ought not have to show up at Opio's office every time something happens. There ought to be some other folk who are motivated to do it. You ought to meet me at church so that I can pray and work on my sermon so that I can move you. That you might show up at Governor Keating's office and tell him, no more will we stand the way you are treating us. I'm moved and I'm excited about this particular conference because I think it is way past overdue. And so I'm guilty that I couldn't come up with the idea, but I'm supporting it because I think Brother Opio Ture has the right idea. We need to bring together all of the elements in our community that can impact the community and make a difference. And so I'm glad that he allowed us these moments to talk about the church, because the church is all-encompassing. Fact of the matter, we still see more folk on Sunday morning, pastors, than any of the rest of the organizations in our community. And so we are the ones who have the ability to impact the community. And so I think the role of religion is this. I think we as leaders ought to be bold enough to stand and bring forth those issues, health issues. Why not talk about AIDS and HIV in your church? Why not talk about condoms in your church? If you don't talk about it in your church, the kids will talk about it and use them outside your church. You hope, because the fact of the matter, they're not using them because of the increase of AIDS. Teenage pregnancy. Yeah, we're mad at the governor because he wants to talk about marriage initiatives. Don't be mad at him. Start doing some pre-marriage counseling, Pastor. And maybe some of these marriages won't break up as quickly. The role of religion, it's all-encompassing. I wouldn't have any other job. I was an accountant for 15 years, and I was so glad that the Lord reminded me, he had called me when I was 13 and moved me. It was a hard struggle, but moved me back to where I was supposed to be so that I could get up every day and worry about those folk who were calling me. Worry about those folk who were in the hospital that you didn't visit. Worry about those folk who were dying and living and trying to make a difference in life. The role of religion is our role as leaders to motivate, to move, to encourage, to educate, and then to have some motive as a role model in showing up at something. And so I end as I began. I wish that you would go back, as Reverend Lawson said, and encourage your pastors to show up at some of those meetings that Brother Lindsay read about that I show up at. I'm glad that my church allows me to do that, but it takes a lot of time. That's why I'm not one of the greatest preachers in Oklahoma City. I spend too much time trying to be involved in the community, showing up, sacrificing some time and some effort, trying to be involved. The role of religion is to prepare you, to prepare your brothers and your sisters, those who show up on Sunday morning, and those of you who don't show up on Sunday morning, ought to hear something from those who did show up on Sunday morning that will make you show up on Sunday morning and get involved, and so there will be a difference on Monday morning.
That mic is hot. I don't know if I can say you're not a good preacher. I think you're reading the book on the other side of heaven. I think you just did a mighty fine job. Brother Oldville, where do you find these books? Now, I'm beginning to feel a little bit inadequate. I'm not a preacher. I tell you, the role of religion, I think you really set a good tone by saying that it's to motivate us to get beyond the walls. I do serve as a deacon in my church. I've done that for the last 12 years in the ministry of benevolence. And again, I probably encourage us to reflect on that thought. Beyond those walls, oh, how I love Jesus is better shown in the very streets and the homes in which we live. Our next panelist is Dr. Ahmad, medical doctor, native of Oklahoma. Douglas High School graduate in 1965. Actively involved as an Islamic leader and a community activist for over 30 years. president of the Interfaith Disaster Recovery for the last 6 years, and the rapid radio commentator on a program called The House of Emancipation for more than 5 years. He's the author of the book, The Human Pen. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, I ask you to put your hands together as we bring Dr. Ahmad to the podium to talk about the struggle of religion.
We want to thank Representative Opio Toure and others who have made possible this date of Black Oklahoma Conference for allowing us to share and for calling us all together on this very important occasion to try to get our minds on the same page so we can move out and be more effective in bringing about constructive changes in our community life. Although I'm a physician, I've been working diligently in the religious field all my life, church on to becoming a Muslim. I see myself dying in that thing. Studying as a child from the cradle to the grave, and I view religion as not only the key in our struggle, and I view that as our human rights struggle, up from slavery on up to civil rights, and the ongoing struggle that we're in today. I also see religion from a medical point of view as being the key to our health. And I won't have time to develop that position today, but really, one of the major roles of religion, I feel, is to get us to realize that there's a temple, a house of God within each of us. And once we learn to respect that house of God within us and come into knowledge of it so that it's a reality for us, not just some words, then we begin to move to protect that house, maintain respect for that house, and next thing we know, that house begins to bring out of us the hidden, latent genius, excellence for growth and development in every respectable avenue of life that we could ever desire to move in. Within us, I think one of the most important things religion can do is remind us all that within us is a house of living stones, living tribes of stones, dark like you and I happen to be. And since we're in a state that was originally given to native peoples, but we came along too, as you know, if you know the history. This house within us is a house filled with native stones that have black freakment color. And as many of you are aware, this state at one time was strongly considered to be a state or a territory for emancipated slaves. But those white settlers called boomers convinced the government to open it up to all, to rush in on and stake claim to. And in the context of that little bit of Oklahoma history, I want to say this. One of the most important things religion can do, especially in the context of Oklahoma's development, history, is help us to realize there is territory within our heartland, right here, that's worthy of our rushing in upon, staking claim to as a God-given gift, you see, of heredity, and begin to work daily to develop it through our home life, our social institutional life, our educational institutional life, until we finally begin to realize the dream of that dreamer who led us during the civil rights movement, the late Martin Luther King Jr., until we finally begin to realize the fulfillment of the vision that Almighty God has for us. We suggest to you that the church can play a major role in helping us to realize that our struggle has been part of a divine struggle and movement in God's universal plan, much bigger than we perhaps have ever realized. There is a word, for example, that the church can make plain to you and keep it alive in us for generations to come. It's the most widely used word in the gospel for man, our human being, but it speaks to the identity of us. That word is anthropo. In your dictionary, it just says the human being. But when you break it down, it has two sounds that we never want you to forget. Anthro, which means black, like charcoal ash, and opo, kind of like our brother Opio, Same idea. Meaning eye, vision, and face. But it's the word used for all human beings. Think on it. We want you to know that when we go inside this heartland, the temple of our brains, we'll discover that there is a dark charcoal, ash-like identity called scenario ash matter, our gray matter, our God's dark matter, that we all share in as human beings. And this dark matter expresses itself in the form of living tribes that enable me to speak right now, enable you to see and hear, enables us to walk and shout and sing and do all the wonderful things we call worshiping God and expressing ourselves. It's these living tribes that are the source of this black vision that's mentioned here, connecting our black vision from the ground up. It's these living tribes that form the ground, to use the Hebrew word afar. And the sounds, or the little vowel sounds, don't give you meaning. There's shades of meaning in Hebrew and Semitic languages, as you know. So I could say afra. The Hebrew word afra for ground, and ash, and clay. In fact, when God in Genesis says he makes man from the dust of the earth, the Hebrew word is afra. We want you to know that we as a people are a sign of the grave, dark, ash, living matter at the foundation of all human identity, all human vision, all human growth. And God has used us in a plan to open up everybody's eyes to his precious, sacred anthropology, human identity that we all share in common. Oklahoma is a state that invites us to go within the heartland of ourselves because it's in the heartland of America. We shouldn't take that lightly. It's a state that formed more black towns than any other state in the history of the United States, as you know. Some of them still live. It's a hint to the rest of the world that in the heartland of human beings are nuclear tribes waiting to have townships established that respect those nuclear tribes and will dignify and cultivate sound growth and development of those tribes. And we suggest to you one of the major roles of religion should be to, as we said at the beginning of the brief comment, bring to life. And that's one reason I feel I'm here, to help bring to life the reality of this church or house of God within us that's full of, notice I said nuclear storm. That's medically correct. Nuclear, and when you think nuclear, you think of the ultimate power. Is that right? We suggest to you that God has put within us, this living temple within the heart of our brain, nuclear potential for growth and development that can empower us in every way that's worthy of being empowered. That's worthy of our moving together upon as religious groups. And how can I as a Muslim say what I just said to you? How can I as a member of the Islamic faith say that? Well, my religion, which is that old time religion going back to Abraham, and we used to sing in the church, it was good enough for Abraham. But we want you to know that at the center of it is the church. Listen carefully. The reason I can say what I said, at the center of this Islamic religion is a house of God in Mecca. That's a symbol of this house that I'm talking about in each of us. And in the language of church, we can say we are told as Muslims to keep your eye on the black church. By the way, this church in Mecca is full of black stone. And 1 billion plus Muslims hope to journey to Mecca once in their lifetime to either embrace or plant a kiss on a beloved black cornerstone. Now, when I journeyed there and saw it, I said, you think this is the aspiration of 1 billion people to kiss a black stone? Of a house full of black stone? I said, but I got to tell my people about it. That weighed on me, and now that I know it's a symbol of just the house of the soul, I'm here to shout it to you and whoever I can reach. God has a house within us that he wants us to keep our daily attention upon because it's the house that rules our inner life, our mind, our hearts. It's the house that represents Rosa Parks' seat. The seat of our desires, appetites, the seat of our dreaming life, the seat of every important aspect of our inner being is represented in God's house. So this whole civil rights movement and our movement up to acquire human rights and dignity in general is really rooted, if we do our homework, is rooted in a higher reality that God wants all people to get in touch with. And the black church is the center of focus. It's a symbolic center because it's in our people. Listen, and we have to grow to realize that God just put his Afra dust at the foundation of all human creation. And we happen to be the sign of it, and moving in a struggle that's designed in time to awaken all human beings to learn to respect, love, cultivate the growth and development of the living temple of God within each of us. Now, I didn't get a chance to read what I really wanted to read, which was more relevant to Oklahoma, but maybe I can hand this out to some at another time. Oklahoma is a special state in God's plan. Pay close attention to the history, though we often view as cowboys and Indians and you black people in Oklahoma too. In God's plan, Oklahoma is made. Pay close attention to it because it's in the heart. And God is always acting within the heart, essence of our human life.
We want to thank Dr. Ahmad. Clearly the spiritual connection of the dust, our soul, the heart of man, is part of that struggle. I think that, I guess as moderator, I'd say that that's part of how we engage, is that we must be the very best that we can be. And that spiritual connection, the understanding of how God created us not to be less than perfect. And again, that's just what I gather out of it. I do thank you for those reflections. And as we open the floor to questions, I ask you just to continue to think on the thoughts that have been shared by those. Our last panelist is Chester Pfeiffer. Chester and I have served on committees in the city, Oklahoma City, and I've known him for some years. County embodies things we talked about here, Brother Lawson, and with the rest of the panel, he gets beyond the walls of his church and his religion. He's involved in the actions and growth of young people. Previous chair of the Oklahoma Shalom, currently the pastor of Christ United Methodist Church, chaplain for the Oklahoma County Detention Center, that's a juvenile facility, and then he's chair of the Enterprise Zone Subcommittee for the development of the Truman Community Center. Again, without a lot of other ado, a friend, colleague of mine, and hopefully I believe you'll see that we will change the face, the fabric of the services we provide in our community, and it will bring us back to what God intended. And so there is really a reason for religion. It transcends politics, Republicans, the Democrats, the Independents. I think that on the platform of religion, you'll find all of those parties can use the power of God, their spiritual bodies, to do great things. Chester's a demonstration of that. Again, I've known him before, so that's the only reason I put the exposition in here, is because I've known him. The rest of them, when preachers are meeting for the first time, but it won't be the last. I like great people. Brother Chester, let's bring him on board.
I too, like the others before me, would like to thank Brother Obio for this opportunity. It seems here lately I've been thanking him a lot. A few years back, I wanted to take some young men to Africa so that they could see a cultural beginning. I spoke to Obio, and from the very first, he was a big encouragement to me. A few weeks back, the city wanted to close down a bunch of schools. Obio called some people together. They went to the school board, and the school board changed its mind. And then just last night, I had to thank him again because the germination of this idea began first, I guess, in his mind. And so I thank him for that because this morning I get a chance to see a little bit of providence happen. He said that this was a Trojan from a long time back. And At a time today when people are saying Douglas High School is a low-performing school, can you see the mind of a Trojan? At a time also when they're talking about how low-performing the schools in this neighborhood is. Just a couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to be in Chicago and speak to another group. There I met another Sooner. His name was Emmett House. Some of you might know Emmett House. Emmett House was born at 17th and Keller. Emmett House graduated from Truman Elementary School. Then went on to Douglas, graduated from Truman. But that's not all he did. He went to Princeton. You know, that's one of those big schools that accepts less than 20% of the people that apply. He went to Princeton and graduated magna cum laude with a foundation from Truman Elementary School. Young people, what can you do? He went on to Harvard. And graduated the head of his law school with a foundation from Truman and Douglas. Young people, what can you do? And he sits now on a board of directors at Chicago called the Chicago Community Loan Fund that determines billions of dollars worth of money that goes into African American communities. Young people, what can you do? But my task here today is to talk about the role of church, of religion in this struggle. And my brother, we sit on a lot of committees together. He leaned over and said, "Can you do this in 10?" Hey, you know, being a preacher, I guess that might be a fear of his. But I'm going to tell you, bro, I can name this tune, not in 3 notes, but I can name this tune in 1 note. What religion can do for this struggle is found in the Word of God, who says to the Hebrews who were captive in Babylon. A bunch of God's people laid captive in Babylon, begging to be released. The purpose of a thing is in the mind of the one who created the thing. So God takes time to tell the Jews in Babylon, here's what I gotta say to you, and this is from the one who brought you here. You didn't get here by captivity, right? You know, you didn't get here by some slave hustlers. I brought you here. And then he goes on further to say, the reason why I brought you here is to build houses, live in them, plant gardens, eat what they produce, marry and find wives and husbands for your children in marriage. The goal for the church, the goal for religion is to increase here and not decrease. Finally, I want you to pray for the peace of the city. That's what religion can do for this struggle. Pray for the peace of the city, because the cure and the answer is in the hands of the Almighty God. We need to pray. And we need to be seen praying in our walk. We need to be seen praying in our talk with people. We need to be seen praying in our care one for another. These young children today that we have so many negative things to say about, I want to tell you something about those children. They are wonderful, potential and marvelous children. And in each one of those children is a potential inner house. They are reflections of you. They are reflections of the children you produce. And if you want these reflections to reflect more positively, then we'll have to pray more positively in front of you.
This ain't church. I'm not going to pass last best. But I thank our distinguished panel, preachers, and ministerial leaders. Jess, I've never heard you preach. I think I'm going to have to come listen. Programs, services, religion, being the foundation for reaching out and doing nursing homes, providing services, empowerment, activism, empowering yourself to get beyond the pews in your institutions of faith, personal growth, understanding the heart of man, empowering yourself to be the best and brightest that you can be. What are the roles of religion in this struggle? And lastly, the foundation of prayer. That reason for which we have active dialogue with supreme beings, your source of inner power. We open the floor now for questions in all of those areas. We've had very positive thoughts shared by each of the ministers here today. And I'll serve as a moderator. I'd like to open the floor for about 15 minutes for you. Maybe to share thoughts or get additional clarification on how you personally or your congregation might get involved and engaged in the active struggle, building a better world tomorrow. Any of the panelists, any of the topics, in the back, in the red.
Hello, my name is Brian. I would like to know what we need to do as an individual to get our parents involved as far as having us get a living wage in Oklahoma. What would be a first step?
My first response to recent year was to say, let's go to them and tell them it'll increase their tithes and offerings. That would be bad. I think part of the problem is just education. Many of them are aware of that. You're involved with A. Philip Randolph and the labor movement and all of that, which really does a lot of work in the area of fair wage, living wage. I think one of the things that probably your organization could do is to, and I know you try to utilize some of us pastors, but try to help get them information that they might be able to inventory their own congregations, because within our bodies, unless they're pastoring churches much differently from mine, I've got some folks who I know because I talk to them about their jobs and what they're making, because I'm involved with the programs that you do, the living wage issue. I think one of the things is maybe getting a little involved, pushing the pastors as far as information that they might have, that they need to investigate their own congregation, see the condition and the plight of their people, why they're in the struggle they're in. Because we get those phone calls about, I can't pay my utility bills, I can't pay my rent. Well, why is that? And it goes back to some other things, budgeting and financial planning that we ought to be talking about also. But one of the basic tenets of that is a fair and living wage, which does not exist. Many of our folk are working for less than, I saw some statistics the other day that really, truly, for one single parent with one child, it takes almost $42,000 a year to live in Oklahoma. I'm not talking about anywhere else. It was local figures in Oklahoma. I think probably organizations like yourself getting involved with some of the ministerial alliances and even having bailouts. I know you try to do a lot of that, but that's going to be the only way to get them. And then go back to that same thing I started with. Most of us like money coming in. It will increase your tithes. And I said that jokingly, but that's absolute truth. It will increase your tithes and offerings so you can do more ministry. So that's one way that I see it happening. And I think that's one, obviously, a moralistic approach to it. Again, there's a pragmatic approach to that too. And I think your organization and others within the labor movement can help out extensively in doing that.
Thank you very much. First table here.
One of the things I noticed, and because we have several large white churches, about 15, 20 years ago, it was around pretty much years on Sunday morning, busting them out. And those young men, used to come tutoring them, working with them. Those young men, when they got old, started going to Bishop, started going to Eastwood. It's very important to live outside our community and supporting our church. see that as a trend not only in Tulsa, but all over the country. It seems as though black churches want to be non-existent in the future. The black ministers doesn't take a role in helping bring up economic, helping bring up household income. So what is the vision of that?
Okay, well, we'll take it back over to Wayne, and I'll just ask the panelists to just go ahead and just fill the questions before you see it. We'll look past it.
That is certainly a very valid question. I have been pastoring in Arkansas for about 2 years and realized the same thing was transpiring there. One thing we did, the first thing we did on the agenda was to apply for a 501 to be tax exempt, non-exempt, and to be able to tap into some of those grant dollars. We found that many of our black churches did not have the facilities, did not have the vehicle, etc. I challenged some of our members to jump in the car with me. We drove around and looked at the white churches that were much smaller than First Baptist. They had 2 vans sitting out front, and a building program going on where they were tapping into the grant dollars. And now we should begin to challenge the black churches to tap into that. If you don't have the budget, there are grant dollars out there. However, we must apply for that 501 to get grant dollars. And with that, that means that we have to take our financial agenda, we must file it down at the City Hall. A lot of black churches don't like that. But the bottom line is that we have nothing to hide. We should have no problem filing what we're bringing in, what's going on down at City Hall. But I believe we're really tapping into some of those grant dollars that are out there to get the vehicles, build the facilities, we can upgrade our facilities, and really do those things that we are required to do. And I agree with you, if we don't do it in the next 5 years, some of our black churches will have to put a padlock on the front door.
Earlier, someone mentioned the idea that we were a whole lot more educated than we've been in the past. But the acquisition of knowledge don't always matriculate into right behavior. So we've collected a lot of information, but we haven't done much about our behavior. And it's our behavior that triggers a reflection in the young people. So yes, they are starving to death. Not for bus rides to church necessarily, but starving to death for people to pay attention to them. Starving to death for somebody to listen to them. Starving to death for somebody to say I care. George chairs Faith the Government. It's a collection of pastors, congregations, and ministers, multi-faith. And we've been trying for years to get mentors out of different congregations to relate to young people in trouble, to relate to parents struggling for the right advice and guidance. If we watch people with good behavior profit in our community and don't duplicate that, then we acquired knowledge, but we still behave foolishly. And that's not just the pastor.
I'll take a privilege for an editorial comment as moderator. I think that clearly people go where the love is. And if you demonstrate a capacity to love and reach out, you won't be surprised that you'll find them over there where they believe people love them. And so I agree with Brother Lawson. Those churches that just padlock the doors 5 years from now, unless they begin to reach out, touch lives, heal the hurt, and love the loveless. Thankful, thankful.
We had a park from closed down 5 parks. They were all going to be on one side of town, the north side. The church people, we all went to see all. The first thing they said was, they were saying, you don't these parks over our children on the game members. They didn't have anything to say about those children. They should have just said, keep the parks open because we pay taxes just like the other side now. We do more labor in our babies than anyone. And I would like to see the church and the ministers stop people from making our children. Hey, just we ain't never been on those foods for no longer. If they had to spend so much money on cleaning them those mess bags outside, they could clean them. They could kept them in a food store. They gonna get shorter. So this is a lot of things we need to do ourselves. Don't let nobody. We don't do it and don't let nobody else do that. So that's
Thank you for your comment.
I'm trying to talk loud enough. Ms. Cole, my understanding of President Bush's program about his faith-based
Faith-based
my understanding is that his idea is that this is to do ministry. The question is, to one of the pastors here, and I know Pastor John Prince, but would you hesitate to use the program, let's say, to buy 3 buses to pick up children on Sunday morning? Or other time for that time. If in fact you could use that program to buy buses or to upgrade facilities, whatever those facilities or whatever those needs might be, would you hesitate to do so? Now I know you cannot speak for all pastors, but you can speak for Pastor George Young.
Before you.
Yep, I'll take the question.
Okay.
You made it first.
I understand that.
No, I would not, and the reason I was thinking, the idea was not to do ministry, the idea was to include, the idea really, from the standpoint of Gore and Bush, was to try to push on some of the things that the government had been previously doing onto the nonprofit, faith-based community, to try to share in that, really not to share, but to make them do it and not pay them the money they were paying professionals for doing in the secular world. The question was, would I hesitate in accepting any of those funds to do that? Presently, with Faith to Government, as a nonprofit organization, we receive money from the State Office of Juvenile Affairs, and we use that money to run some of our programs. I have not filed for 501c3 with Holy Temple, and I'm in the process of doing that. And any kind of money that Bush sends out, I'll use it, because I'm not afraid of using it, and I'm not afraid of them getting in my business, and I'm not afraid of stealing the money. That's the other, I think that's the big thing, is that we have been caught up in a lot of things and we have been not as vigilant about our record keeping and our documentation as we should have been, and we got into some trouble. I'm not afraid of that. Yes, they have, I look at that stuff all the time, and I encourage the pastor, Floyd Flake up in New York City. Floyd Flake has a whole little city up there, and he did it with government funds. So why should I be afraid to use it? No, I'm not. So you ask me a personal question, I'm in the process of filing that, and I will get as much money from them as I can and build as much stuff as I can build, because I think it helps the community.
A quick follow-up. Before we rush to label faith-based initiatives and the government support of that to the Bush administration, actually the encouragement of charitable choice and utilizing the faith community in the answer to the resolving of governmental problems came prior to Bush. And the church had been building the community since back to Jeremiah's day. So for the church to do what the church is called to do, we already have a divine leader for that. And we've been doing it all the time. Now the government wants to support it, that's okay.
Okay. I'm sorry, we are out of time for questions. This will have to be the last question.
We would like to send an invitation. We'd like to send an invitation from Moon Junior High, Middle School, Frederick Douglass High School, where you ministers come join us for a year. We'd like to see you in our hall as representatives of young black males of what a black male can become. We need role models, black role models. They don't see them coming through elementary school. They don't have that many black males in middle school. There's a few left in high school. So we need you to come and visit.
Thank you for this. we're now going to take the program back to Brother Opio and Dr. Ron Mack. Thank you so much.
Let's give all our panelists a hand. While they're moving around, let me announce something that hopefully you'll find interest in. Tomorrow morning, we're going to begin the conference at 7:30 a.m. 7:30 a.m. with a prayer breakfast. This 7:30 a.m. prayer breakfast will be a continuation of this panel, not only talking about how churches, religious organizations can be involved, but also the prayer that Reverend Pfeiffer talked to us about. 7:30 a.m. with a prayer breakfast. The cost of the breakfast is only $3. Now you're going to go eat breakfast somewhere. If it's at McDonald's or across the street or somewhere, you're going to spend a lot more money for prayer for breakfast. Come pray with us and work for $3 prayer breakfast tomorrow morning at 7:30 here at Langston University, Oklahoma City. We wanted to make a slight change in our program because the reparations workshop was very involved. All of the speakers could not get on and present if we had conducted the workshop as it was originally organized. I blame the planning committee for not visualizing that. But we did not get on Dr. Ron Daniels, who has come to Oklahoma to be with us for a number of reasons, but also specifically to talk about the reparations movement. I gave sort of an introduction this morning. I don't see Mr. Rice, who has his full bio. But let me just tell you, and I say it in all humility and sincerity. This man right here is the very best organizer in the African world. I'm talking about the whole world of Africa. On the continent, I'm serious. I'm serious. The 1972 political convention that all of the elected officials went to, Hannah Atkins was very much involved. Hannah will be here at some time during the conference. He helped put that on. The State of the Black World that folks came from all over the world to in Atlanta, he put that on. The Institute of the Black World is being relaunched. Folks came all over the country to help him celebrate his birthday. This is the man. This is the very best organizer. We have him here. He writes, you read him in the Ebony Tribune. I think the Oklahoma Eagle carries his articles from time to time. I told you about Black Oklahoma today. This man has it. He's going to talk with us about reparations, Dr. Ron Daniels.
Well, thank you very much, Opio. Get this up a little higher. Thank you very much. In the workshop itself, I had an opportunity to present, but I feel it's important people have the opportunity to do questions and answers. So I yielded my time because I'm here as a visitor, I'm here as a guest, and you're here dealing with Oklahoma matters. I have some opinions about some of these things, but I certainly wanted people to have an opportunity to do questions and answers. So I appreciate this opportunity just for a few minutes to share a few ideas about reparations and the question of economic development in that context. Before I do that, let me just nibble and dip my nose a little bit on a couple of other things because the religion panel that just preceded us. The thing we have to remember in terms of the black church is it was born in protest, at least in terms of its denominations. Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, Philadelphia, could not worship at a white church, lifted up, taken away when they were trying to pray. They created their own denomination, point one. Secondly, they created a black church that was at the center of the black community. This is not, that was at the beginning. The Mutual Aid Societies, African Charity Society, African Free Schools. You look back from the history of the black church, insurance companies, banks, that all came out of the black church. The black church was central to the evolution and development of the black community. So I just wanted to just throw that little bit of history in it because I do a little meddling around with history a little bit. Second point I want to make about this faith-based initiative that we should be clear about. The black church has also been the independent. Why was the black preacher the leader? Because the black preacher was not on anybody's payroll but the black community's payroll. Didn't have to worry about no grants, didn't have to worry about no federal audits, free. And you may still do that. Second point is, if Bush had come with a pot of money, let's say before faith-based initiatives you had $50 billion, just they say for example. Then he said, now we're going to do faith-based initiatives and we're going to add $25 billion to the pot. All right, that's a different example. But that's not what he did. He said, let us now do faith-based initiative, same pot, $50 billion, everybody compete for the same $50 billion, which is much less than we had in the 60s and the 70s, the war on poverty, Model City program, and other things. Last comment on that. Beware the wolf in sheep's clothing. Beware, whenever something comes, always know from whence it's coming and then ask questions. Why is this coming from this particular direction? Just those 3 comments on that. Now, I wanted to quickly say, as I said this morning, Reparations Summit. We're attempting to bring, in the next 60 days, if possible, and if Oklahoma will host it, Oklahoma and Tulsa will host it, a summit on reparations in Tulsa. Why? Because we want to focus on Tulsa. A comment was made in the Economic Development Workshop that we don't need to be emotional. We're too emotional. I agree with that to some degree. Quite frankly, I don't think we're emotional enough. I don't think we're passionate enough. The question is passion and emotions plus plan equals progress. That's the formula. But if you just have passion and emotion and no plan, then I agree. We're just angry and you're just striking out. But we don't have enough passion. Anytime we could allow the Confederate flag to wave in South Carolina this long, we ain't got enough passion. Because if we were Jews and there was anything that resembled a swastika, it would never ever be tolerated. We got people in Mississippi, when the vote came down about whether or not to remove it from the Mississippi flag, a significant percentage of black folks voted to leave it in. Can you imagine Jews voting to keep the emblem of a swastika in the flag? We are not angry enough on some of these questions. Reparations is another issue we're not passionate enough about. Reparations is an idea whose time has come. It's been debated. It's like Kwanzaa. Quite frankly, a lot of y'all didn't even know what Kwanzaa was until the white folks started talking about it. All of a sudden, on television, because a few dedicated activists, and that's what's important about this, don't want to get biblical, but Christ came with not the multitude, he came with 12. The 12 became the multitude. Some people jump on after the fact. White folks start saying, and some of y'all, be truthful, you got on your job, people saying, oh, you're celebrating Kwanzaa. You didn't even know what it was. You had to go find out what Kwanzaa was. White folks. Now, reparations is on the agenda. The reason why we've had difficulty with reparations is because black folks, because one of the key struggles we have to fight with is the struggle of the mind, to liberate our minds. Dr. Maulana Karinga, the creator of Kwanzaa, said the key crisis in black life is the culture crisis. Malcolm X said of all the crimes committed by Europeans against Africans, the greatest crime was to take our names. What did he mean by that? Culture. I shouldn't be Ron Daniels. And some of y'all got a little upset in the 60s and 70s when we started changing our name, but the fact of the matter is, culture is the stuff that make a people stick. So we ended up, and so we started talking about reparations. That's a part of the equation. We are the most damaged Africans. We can say that now. We can say that now. 25 years ago, you could not say African because half of y'all would have been up, we've been fighting right in this room. The Italian is Italian because there's a land called Italy. The German American because there's a land called Germany. Polish people in this country because there's Poland. Where's colored land? Where's Negro land? Where's even black land? You see, we had to learn that Africa is the land from which our people come. Therefore, it's okay to be African people. That's who we are. We created the pyramids. We produced the world's first multi-genius. Young folks, we got to go back and capture that history. Now, what is reparations? Reparations is simply, as someone read in the dictionary this morning, it is repair for damages done to a people. It is repair for the spiritual, mental, and physical damages done to a people. Now, There is no greater Holocaust, and don't let anybody else back you up from the term Holocaust, no greater Holocaust in human history than the destruction of African people by Europeans from various parts of the world with the complicity of their various governments. The most modest estimates indicate that 30 million Africans were ripped out of the African continent. The highest estimates by scholars like W.B. Du Bois saying 100 million. 100 million. Now the Jewish Holocaust in Germany, 6 million. 6 million. And that was a crime against humanity. Make no mistake about it. But they say what? Never again. And they're getting paid not once, every time you turn around. They are so conscientious. They are so dedicated. They're getting paid over and over and over again. Just recently, for free labor in Germany and various other places, they're still on the case. And we walk around here, you don't even know what reparations is. That's what reparations is. Is there, and why should we be made whole? Because we were robbed from our homeland. Our language was taken away from us. It took a long time for us to understand that call and response in terms of the Baptist church and the AME church and the Pentecostal church, that's Africa in our blood. We didn't even know that because we've been separated from that culture. But then the physical damages. And then the other thing is we helped to make America and Europe rich off our free labor. The triangular trade. I'm going to give you two books, 3 books. One is called Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams. Capitalism and Slavery. Eric Williams, the former Prime Minister of Trinidad. The other is entitled How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. Please read it. Pastors, read it. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And the last one is called How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America by Manning Maryland, one of our dear friends. I'm going to give you one illustration. Because if you don't know, knowledge is power. Ignorance is not bliss. It is not. It's insanity. Knowledge is power. The triangular trade. If you never heard of it, understand the triangular trade. England, in terms of the development of its economy, when you read Walter Rodney, he points out that Lloyd's of London, y'all heard of that, right? Lloyd's of London, Barclays Bank, the capital from that came right from the slave trade. Whole cities, Nantes, Liverpool, developed and blossomed out of the slave trade. Fortunes, millions of people making millions of dollars out of the slave trade, out of this traffic. What did they do? England took implements to Africa. Over to the Caribbean, they took slaves from Africa to the Caribbean. They took slaves, sold the slaves, took back to England agricultural products, particularly like sugar, for example. And then that cycle continued. Profit being made at every angle on our backs. Now, those of you young brothers and sisters who study economics, two principles, acceleration principle and the multiplier effect. Sister was talking about Rumsfeld canceling some missile program or whatever. She said, oh my God, it's going to have a problem. It's going to be a problem. Why? Because she said in that particular community, a lot is dependent upon that missile program. The point is, when you pull out that plant, if there are 5,000 jobs in that plant, if you pull out the plant, the impact is not just the 5,000 jobs, is it? It's everything that depends on those 5,000 jobs. The little coffee shops, the bars, the pool rooms, the barber shops. You understand what I'm saying? That is the multiplier effect. So what you have here is, because of the injection of capital from slavery, it contributes to the explosion of what's called the Industrial Revolution in Britain. That's on our backs. And then on this side, you have New England, the people from New England, all right? The Yankees, including the Kennedy family. They go to the Caribbean with little trinkets, little implements, so forth and so on. I'm sorry, they go this way. They go to Africa, capture slaves, come into West Indies, and they sell the slaves, and they get something that is a byproduct of the production of sugar called molasses. All right? They take that molasses to New England, and they don't just put it on pancakes. the Kennedy family made its fortune in whiskey distillery. Let's take it a step further. Just very simple. This is very basic. All right, so now you have ships and demand for more ships in order to make this traffic go. What is the impact? The explosion of the shipbuilding industry. What are ships made out of? Trees. Explosion of the timber industry. What else goes into it? Tar and pitch, nails, explosion. Even white folks who were not directly involved in the traffic benefited. I want y'all to understand this. Because white people come, I didn't have anything to do with it. Of course, it's not whether you had anything to do with it. You were the beneficiary of the slave trade because it created economic opportunities on the backs of the slave trade. And these are the lessons you have to understand. We can't even argue the affirmative action thing because we don't understand the arguments. When you look at what happened quickly in terms of just not only slavery but discrimination, and some of y'all know this because it happened in my lifetime, so I know you understand what it's about. Not just down south, but up south. In the Jim Crow system, there were certain jobs that were, I won't listen to my language now, set aside for white folks, weren't they? The black folks couldn't work those jobs. And they said, but if you, and this was a deal that they cut with the white poor, by the way. And the white poor, this was by the capitalists and the rich class, because quite frankly, they were exploiting poor white people too. That's the real deal. That's the real secret. That's the dirty little secret nobody wants to talk about. Poor white folks have been exploited by rich white folks too. But they gave them special jobs just for white people. And if you have to work with them niggas, excuse my language, we will make sure you get paid more for doing exactly the same work. Well, what was that except an affirmative action program for white people? You talk about economic set-asides in terms of business, that was set aside. You couldn't get those jobs. Even in the steel mill, when my father came from Georgia, from the coal fields of West Virginia, went to Youngstown, Ohio, worked for the steel mill, and this is in the 50s. There were certain jobs he could not work. There was a ceiling. People could just get off the boat from Europe and to work jobs that my father couldn't work. And the point is that the people who could work the good jobs, you take a pot of money and you pass it on intergenerationally. There's an intergenerational benefit for those who had jobs set aside for them. There's an intergenerational deficit. We ain't behind because nothing wrong with our genes. It's because of what happened to us in history. And we shouldn't be apologetic. Oh, well, we should keep talking about the past. I mean, we just, the civil rights leaders, they keep talking. No. You're out of your mind. You don't understand. The intergenerational. So now, reparations. If you understand this picture, then we are entitled to be paid. The Jews were paid reparations from several countries because of the Holocaust. Billions of dollars. They're still being paid. And Native Americans, even though Native Americans have not gotten as much as they should get, they have sovereignty reservations. They're still struggling out in Canada. Huge tracts of land are being given to Native Americans, justly, by the way. And we should fight with them at every step of the way to help them deal with that, because we are also the beneficiary of the dispossession of Native Americans. We are here on their land. All right? And that's what we have to understand. That's a part of the deal. So now, here we stand, having been enslaved, and we just got emancipated. Y'all free. We became agricultural laborers, we became sharecroppers, we became tenant farmers, and y'all know what the sharecropping system was. You never ever could make ends meet. Whether you could count or not didn't make any difference, because at the end of the year you always owed master some extra left over, because so he was always a slave. It was a new form of slavery. We became political leaders in the Reconstruction period, standing up, pontificating, passing legislation, and didn't have an economic floor up under us. We didn't get the 40 acres of the mule. A bill was actually passed that talked about 40 acres of the mule, was vetoed by Andrew Johnson. Most of y'all don't know that. Sherman, in a field order, actually gave a huge tract of land all the way from South Carolina all the way to Florida, a huge tract of land. He set aside 40 acres of the mule, was turned back. So the idea of reparations is not crazy, first of all. It's rational. It's what people do when they really want to be honest and decent and play fair. Now we're discovering what? Insurance companies were made profits off of insuring you, our ancestors. So we need to talk about, therefore, pushing this question forward. Now, passion. In the Congress of the United States just yesterday, everybody was genuflecting, trying to pass a resolution, tripping over themselves to say that they support Israel in relationship to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. I mean, they was tripping over themselves. Nobody is tripping over themselves to pass H.R. 40, the Congress bill that's been introduced every year. What does that say? A particular group of people, if they speak up, everybody listens and acts. When you raise your voice, you just raise your voice. Why? Because we are not sufficiently unified and organized to push this question forward. So, we need to move with the question of reparations. The other thing I want to do real quickly in terms of this discussion is to say that somebody says individual check. We're going to have difficulty talking about individual checks. We should talk about individual checks. I don't want an individual check. What I want is, I want an economic development fund, education development fund, so we can use those resources strategically to develop infrastructure in our community. Now, I don't want to talk bad about us. The fact about it is, unfortunately, if each of us got a $20,000, $25,000 check, without an infrastructure to catch those dollars, it would just end up. So the intelligent thing to do, both from a legal point of view, a political point of view, and understanding where we are in history point of view, is create an economic development fund so the resources go into that fund. So I think we need to intensify the struggle for reparations. Don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed. Talk about reparations over and over again. Because if we get reparations to the tune of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trillion, whatever is owed to us, they can never pay us, first of all, enough. But whatever it is can be used strategically to deal with some of the issues like the judge talked about last night. Some of us are doing just fine, or we're not doing as fine as we should be doing, but nonetheless, we're doing fine enough that we ain't pissed off and angry about it. But we got some people who are seriously suffering in the black community that we can create industries and business for. And let me just say this real quick. Just because we create jobs does not mean we have economic empowerment. Empowerment zone. We got an empowerment zone in Harvard. Disney and Reebok and all these companies coming in to create, they're coming in really replacing the indigenous local businesses. We're not creating joint ventures, we're creating jobs. But we're in the place where we're displacing our economic infrastructure. So what you want to do is create economic infrastructure. That's the most important thing. Wealth, that's what's important. Not just jobs, the creation of economic infrastructure. So let me close by saying that this is a critical question. Read up on reparations, know what it's all about. The struggle in Tulsa, that's why I want us to come to Tulsa. That's not a local struggle. That's a national and international struggle. They shouldn't be hesitating and hemming and hawing about whether or not they're going to take care of what happened in 1921. If you can't talk about the World Trade Center and what happened there without talking about what happened in Tulsa in 1921, if that's not a terrorist act, I don't know what is. We're so eager to go along, to get along, that we won't even raise these issues up. If you want us to be about fighting against terrorism, and we should be, I'm not sure it's the way George Bush wanted to fight against it, that's a whole other discussion. But you need to make sure that you take care of the issues that have plagued us as a people. Oklahoma should pay up the reparations, and all of us all across this country need to be fighting together to make sure that Tulsa is made whole, that the Greenwood District flourishes again. I happen to hear what the Chamber of Commerce is doing that, but that's our united struggle. So, again, I can talk a lot more, obviously, we got to move on. I appreciate these few moments to at least talk a little bit about reparations. Thank you very much.
Brothers and sisters, we're running right a little bit behind time because we need to get Ron in. We have 2 workshops coming up.
Went to the depths.
Oh, you ain't heard nothing yet.
Yeah, no.
I got you. I got.
Oh, you didn't get.
I got 2 snapshots already.
Well, no.
When y'all was talking.
Nice.
See, let me show you.
Man, I ain't had no bath today.
Come here.
I ain't brushed my teeth. I ain't been asleep, man. Oh man, that's gross. Gross.
Now let me get JB and Dominique. Oh man, hand was too shaky. I get one more.
They don't have a
Stable. God, don't leave JB.
Can I have your attention? We're about to start.
I gotta get out of here. It does, but this thing is too technical for me.
Yeah.
I just said somebody, I mean, you know, griping all the time. That's my definition.
Okay,
But I didn't ever say
anybody
everybody else.
I want to know. I don't know. That's what I want to do. What is it?
A person who allows you to be taken advantage of. When you walk around here and you say that she's my beat, that means you're in control of her. She do that your bag get called. You can flip her, you can turn her, you're in control.
See, the older people got to be.
We just had a comment, a very interesting comment. The discussion, you said that if a man said that would be a problem. But if a woman says that, it's not a problem. And just to expound on that, gentleman right here brought up the favorite topic, and that's hip hop, rap music, all the music. No, hey, I started the wiki, don't, hey, I'm all for it. The music, the continuous, perpetual use of the word be, the perpetual use of the word hope. That's the words get slung around real loosely. And I understand what you're saying, sister, that they're words. I'm a person who believes that words are life, and what you speak is what you manifest. So to continually listen to the H and the B and the N, and to see, and I especially want to hear this from the young brothers as well. Y'all gonna say something over here. And the young women, the sexualization of women. And I know y'all see the videos. Everybody naked, everybody showing everything, every thigh, every muscle, every piece of everything. And my question is to you all, honestly, young women, how does that make you feel? Not just the visual sexualization of women, but the degrading lyrics in some of hip hop, not all of it, because I'm a hip hop activist and I know it ain't all like that. But the constant dropping it like it's hot. Drop what like it's hot? Work for this dollar. How many songs have work for this dollar? Thank you. And when they're saying work for this dollar, drop it like it's hot, that's strip terminology. That's for strippers. And the constantly dancing to it and the that's what they're talking about, stripping. When they say hoe, brother over here about to give us the definition. They're not talking about you in a nice manner. They're talking about you using your body loosely. You doing that loosely. Let me get something from the young Amber. Let me get this from the young women first. Let me start with Dominique over here.
Well, when you said like the terms that they use, it's kind of sad because when you go to a club or something, you dance, they expect you to do what's on the video. They say something, they expect you to do what that is, and when you don't do it, they get disappointed. Like it's something we're expected to do. That's what we're here for, to do that. Women.
Yeah. You all here to drop it like it's hot. We're gonna go all the way around.
To me, it gives us a bad name. Like boys, they think like it's not a day. I don't walk in the hallway and I see a little boy reaching for a little girl's booty. I mean, what does that mean? Well, you grabbed a booty. What's the point of it?
He's just a freak. That's all.
It means he doesn't have any home challenge.
Hold on, brother. I hope you try to be the devil's advocate, because let me say that's not the devil. That's the devil's advocate. Did you just say, and I'm trying to hear you, that means she's just a freak? He's a freak. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm just saying. Females out there wearing short skirts and thongs and tube tops.
That's different.
Oh, hold on, wait. Hold on. Let me say this. If a woman is walking around in a G-string and a cut-off shirt, what right does anybody have to touch her?
That's that woman's business, but at the same time, she going around with these short skirts and you see everything. She might as well
Hold on.
touch it.
At the same time,
I hear what you're saying. That you dress a certain way. The comment has been put out there. When you dress a certain way, you must be expected to be treated.
I didn't say
a
that.
certain. No. I know that's not what you're saying, but let's just put that out there because your comment was that you're running around with short skirts, with all this exposed and whatnot and so forth.
let me get some of the young ladies.
That once you dress a certain way, you'll be treated a certain way. And I'm gonna hand the mic to the young ladies over here who are gonna handle it. I'm gonna hand it this one first, this young lady first. But my question is, what right does anybody have, and we can go to that, but nobody has the right to touch any person's body, regardless if they got a tomato sack on and a plastic. If they walking naked down the street, you don't have a right to put your hands on nobody's body. All right.
So do all the men think that all women, if they go out with a little or nothing on, should get raped?
No.
If they dress in a certain way? Well, you just said that if she's in a skimpy outfit, if she's in a skimpy outfit,
Hold on just a second. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just asking a
Chris,
The brother just said something over here that she's asking to get touched, and I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. And when we have this conversation, let's remember we're not trying to be combative. We're trying to have an open discussion. Let's not, this is no person. I think everybody understands nobody deserves to be physically or raped, and it's not personal. We're trying to have an open discussion. Hold on just a second. Let me try to get this young brother. You said that, come here. You've been over here talking the whole time. Come here. You said that they are asking for it. What do you mean by that?
If they come out with nothing over covering their bottoms or nothing, they asking for somebody to touch them.
Okay, hold on. And why so? And Chris, I'm gonna ask you. Come on, give me some. Hold on, let this brother. Go ahead. And why? And the question, Amber, give us a second. We're trying to ask this brother. And why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like they're asking to be touched?
Cause
do you feel like they somehow are not dressed respectfully?
Yeah, it's coming out that buff showing and stuff. They just asking to get touched.
Let me get this brother right here. Hold on. Right.
I got a question for the females. If you know what I'm saying, you see a girl walking around with a thong showing everything cut, what you gonna think about it? You know, what you think?
That was his question.
No, I'm talking about what's gonna come in your mind.
What's gonna come to my mind?
Hold on just a second. The question was, what comes to your mind? Not sexually. He said, what comes to your mind?
Okay, when I see a girl dressed like that, the first thing, it's like, it depends. Cause I'm using me for instance. Okay, I dress a certain way. I dress different types of ways depending on how I feel that day. If it's sunny outside, nice and pretty, oh yes, for sure. I'm gonna throw on the big heels with the shorts, with the t-shirt, because that's how I feel comfortable. But that don't mean when I walk down the hallway that they give you permission to touch me. That's personal. When you put your hands on me, you take it to a whole nother level. You can look at me, you can say something to me, just do not touch me. When you touch a woman without her permission, that is degrading. That's calling her a hoe. That's what that is. That's putting her down.
Can I see that mic? Response. Hold on. Let me speak loud. All right. you back there. All kind of comments.
All right. But when you see a hoe, what do you see her dress like? Do you not see her showing all this? You know what I'm saying?
That's nasty.
Oh.
Yes. When you see a girl's thong, that is nasty.
Okay.
When you see a female walking down the street that ain't got nothing on but some stars around her nipples and a little G-string, okay, that's taken to an extreme. But if you seeing somebody that might be wearing like low-cut pants and maybe her thong strap showing something, that's our fashion. That's Generation X. That's hip-hop fashion. But what's the That's not to the point of degrading. Really, that's because
mixing a lot of
we
things.
wear
Now, hold on, ladies. So what you're saying is, his question, which none of y'all still didn't answer, was when y'all see somebody dressed with that, what y'all think of her? And he's now saying that it's not like that. What is it
When
like?
I see a female who, if I can see her thong or something, the first thing I think about is not that she's a hoe. Okay, maybe her thong might be cute. I might want to go somewhere after she got on. It really depends on what outfit is cute. If she's dressed to a point where she's not completely exploiting herself, it might be cute, it might be fashionable, it might be something that I myself might want to wear. But if she, to the point where she's saying, like she's putting out a message, please come feel on me, come grope my body or something like
Put
that.
that message out. How you wear you act.
It's how you carry yourself. Okay.
Aaliyah, she showed her thong in one of her videos. Nobody called Aaliyah a hoe because she had her thong showing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Let me get this brother over here. Right here, come on.
What if looking becomes a problem?
Look what?
Show and tell him.
Did you say hooking?
Whoa, look. Hold on, wait a minute. Let the brother finish.
What? No.
I mean, y'all coming out with all this short stuff. I mean, I know y'all trying to get attention anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, so why wear basically?
Okay.
Hold on, wait a minute, let him finish.
Go ahead, go on.
Why wear something like that if you want to see if you want a girl to see what you want? Basically.
Hold on, let me get a couple of more comments. Before we go back and forth. Brother right there in the gray shirt. Hold on.
They walking to jail butt naked. You want to
Ladies. Come on.
Firstly, I think that it all really depends on the way that the person's thinking when they see that person. Because I personally do feel that if a female gets up and put on some skimpy outfits that maybe for that day she is looking for attention. I'm not saying that she's out there saying that she wants to be touched and fondled, but if you wake up in the morning, you put on something and you looking nice anyway, you're revealing stuff, you're going to get attention anyway. So I don't really see.
But that's one of the
Wait, hold on.
Amber.